Welcome to Tech Ties and Human Vibes, where we explore the tech that powers modern businesses and drives innovation. I'm Adam, and with me is Nancy. We'll be talking to entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry experts about the tools they use, the challenges they face, and how technology is shaping the future of work. Let's dive in. Hey, I'm Adam with Tech Ties and Human Vibes, here for part 2 with Leslie Farmer. And
Nancy Henriquez.
There she is.
Hey.
The Nancy Henriquez.
There's like 3 of us, I think.
We're back
in the world.
There's 3 in the world. Wow. That's
Anyways.
awesome.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of Adam Nelsons. I'm just telling you that right now, like a million of them.
There's a lot of Leslie Farmers, I can tell you that. And I get a lot of their emails because they have all their emails wrong. Anyways, well,
So welcome back to part 2. Last step, we had to make this into 2 parts because this was just like too meaty of a
There's
conversation.
a lot of good stuff there.
yeah.
Right. And we didn't have time for one of the meatiest questions that I wanted to ask. So
we left off on question. What are some common mistakes that small businesses make implementing new systems or technologies? And do we want to touch on that again, or do we want to move past it? It's up to you.
I think that we can go on and on and on with that forever.
Yeah. We could. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot in there.
But I'm gonna just use that to segue right in. One mistake that a lot of people make is not consider the data that they have available to them within all of their systems. Like there is so much rich information in so many different ways that you capture in between different systems too. So like whether it's your CRM and capturing data about your client, whether it's your line of business software and capturing any kind of small notes as to how your client likes to be serviced, any exceptions, so on and so forth. There's so many different ways, right, that you can use data. So Leslie, my question to you is, how can small businesses, 1, use that data, 2, track their progress, and 3, make informed decisions?
Yeah. So I think I said earlier on the first half, I love data. Data is very important. So I think the first thing is you have to make sure that you're tracking the data somehow, right? That you know what data you can get from that system that you're using and be able to organize it in a way that makes sense and how you can pull that out and put it or let it talk to whatever else you need it to, right? To communicate within the systems. So I think one of my, I laugh now because I'm like, oh yeah, data, I'm such a nerd.
Data is king.
Something I've said in all of the many trainings that I've done over the years, especially with new service reps at the software company. I was in charge of training and hiring and stuff. And I would always say, let the data speak to you, right? So that is...
You are a nerd.
I am such a nerd. I love it so much. And so, as a technology person and somebody who understands and knows databases, like, it doesn't matter what data you get is if you don't let it speak to you and learn what it's telling you, right? You can have 1,000 rows, and if you don't know where it's coming from, how to see it right, it doesn't matter. You're not letting that data speak to you. So let the data speak to you is something I joke because I would always just say that, and these younger kids out of college, but they'd be like, okay, Leslie, let the data speak to you. And now it's a joke. And so I would always say, what do I always say? Like, let the data speak to you. So anyways, we'll go there.
I love it. I think that we have to like make t-shirts or something.
Let the data speak to you.
Let the data speak to you.
Let the data speak to you. It is so important.
Do you have like a Zen moment with the data? I'm sorry.
I do.
I see her sitting on the floor with candles around. Just going, let the data speak to you.
Okay, I love that. I'm going to manifest that data in my mind. No, I am a visual person in a way. So I like to see the data. And so whenever we'd be looking at the specific software, the database behind it is like pricing and customer information and stuff like that. So we would have to figure out what's happening and where the data is. And so I would say, well, we're actually writing the stuff to pull the data out, right? So like, how do you know what to pull out? Well, you got to see it. So I would basically do a select all. Those SQL nerds will know what I mean. And you'd just see it, just look at it and say what kind of, figure out the fields that you probably need to look at and like look at it. Like, don't just say, oh, I don't know where it is. Like, look at the data, let it tell you where the anomalies are. What does it really say? I think that also is so much easier now with AI and a lot of things that you can do, which is a whole nother segment I'm sure we can get into. But
Part 3.
so understanding the data, letting it speak to you, and then also figuring out what you want to say with it, right? Like the data analysis part of it is huge. And everybody loves a good dashboard. If you can get a good dashboard that kind of shows you that data visually, for the visual people especially, it's really great. There's some dashboarding tools that you can use. There's a lot of dashboards and reports built into a lot of the systems that you use. So like play around with it, like look at them, understand the analytics, understand that data. That's part of letting the data speak to you, is letting it come out in a way that makes sense to you as a business owner, as a person using that data, just being able to see it in whatever way that is that it comes to you. Once you can get that, I don't know if I answered your question, but once you can get that out, you can definitely kind of use it in a better way, or kind of see, okay, this data looks different. What am I going to do about that part of it?
Yeah, no, I love that answer. And I think that there's so many ways, there's so much data that we capture, one, that we don't even know about. Two, we don't even think of ways to leverage that data. And then 3, being able, and I'm a puzzler, so I love puzzles. And one of the things that I like to see, or that I tend to see, I should say, is patterns. So then also being able to recognize and see those patterns, or see those missing pieces in a puzzle, ultimately speaking, that can then lead you to now building KPIs that then lead you to being able to track performance, being able to track, so many different things, right? And then on top of that, being able to then turn around, use that data for things like, how do I better service my customer?
Yeah.
So that's...
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Bill Gates, I think it was Bill Gates, said content is king, but you disagree and say data is king.
Content can come from data.
Yeah.
This is true.
I think data is at the heart of it all. You don't get content without some of that data showing you where and what you need to do with that data, right?
Yeah.
Making that content. So
let it speak to you.
I do feel like, we're going to let it speak. And I do feel like there's definitely, data analytics is such a huge field. There's so many massive database systems and stuff that people use that are experts. Like there's so many layers to that onion of data that is like, maybe that could be my own podcast. Let the data speak to you. And we can talk more about all that goes into that. But yeah, there's so much, there's a lot of humans behind it. I can tell you that for the tech human perspective. But
not to break away from that.
Yeah,
question,
no,
but
yeah.
I'm going to say I'm a small business out there running, and I'm looking for some software. When you're a small business, you're really just grabbing it, anything you can to help you grow. What is some systems and technologies that allows a small business to grow?
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
And you say that you're moving away from it, but really you're not. Because ultimately it's the systems and tools that you need in order to capture the data.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I would say there's core systems that every small business needs, right? You need a CRM in order for you to keep track or house.
At what point do you get a CRM? Let me just ask that question.
Yeah.
So I'm a small business running off of a spreadsheet. I'm just starting. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
Spreadsheet.
Yep.
At what point do you say, okay, I'm going to invest into a CRM?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that
Didn't mean to derail here.
no, it's a great question.
I think it leads to also, at what point do you invest in
Yes.
systems.
XYZ, whatever it is? I think it is a great system.
Right.
A great question. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, I think that
It's a great system.
it's a great system to have, to ask all the right questions. I think that it starts off with, once you have to either share the information, keep track of the information, basically you bring on somebody else that needs access to that information as well. That's when you got to start to look at the actual tools and systems that you need. You no longer run off of just this. I mean, you can, but is that really the best use of time and tools?
It's not scalable.
Right. Exactly. And so really, for me, it came down to, and every business is different, every stage is different. So one, do you have the funds? Because if you have the capital, obviously invest in it from day one, because if you can, then the sooner you do it, the easier it will be to scale. But if you can't, that's okay too. There's ways to continue to go about it in a way where it's easy enough. But the moment that you get to a point where now you have to share that information, you have to be able to now invest in tools that allow you to do that in more easy ways, because if not, then you're going to run into other problems, communication problems, losing things. I mean, you name it, you can start to, that hecticness can start to creep in much faster at that point than if you don't. So
Yeah.
I think that's my suggestion there.
All right, it's good.
Yeah, I like it. I agree. I think as soon as you need to pull it out, give it to someone else, that is when you need to, especially something like a CRM, and there's always going to be a very basic option, like your email platform, right? Hit save on that contact, add a tag or add a note, which company, whether it's in your phone or, whatever, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, once you need to tell someone how to do it, that's when, one, you also need to make sure your documentation and your SOPs are in place, and that you've kind of figured out, got all the stuff out of your head so it can get to someone else, whatever way that needs to happen. But that, I think, is a huge part of at least a CRM and other systems. What was your original question? 'Cause now I'm all thinking about CRMs, and I'm like,
what
oh
are
my
the
gosh.
systems and technology that a small business needs, right, to grow? And so,
To grow.
like, ultimately, there's those basic ones, your CRM, in order to keep track of your customers, new customers, existing customers, all of that. You need your financial software, right, in order to keep track of your finances. Without that, you can quickly blow up a company.
Yeah. Document everything, keep it all.
Yeah, depending on
As
the
soon as
industry
you do
that
it.
you're in, it could be
And this is, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is where you come in saying, hey, maybe you should utilize this CRM over this CRM because you're a specific type of company. Or
Yes.
maybe you should use this software over this software, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
That's what you specialize in.
Yeah, I do actually, which is great. And I love being in that place, and using the knowledge that I've gained over the last 20 years of working with businesses, understanding software. So a lot of people will start with a website, which is, I think, a great place to start. You need to have a website, you have email so you can communicate, some sort of, whether it's Office or Google Workspace. So you have documents, PowerPoint, whatever, all the different slide decks. Canva is actually really amazing, and not sponsored or anything, but something like Canva where you can do a lot of things. So you kind of start there. So you have an email, you have a spreadsheet, you might have a special software for your financial system. So that's where most people start, let's say. When you get to the point where you need to scale is, when you're hiring people, when other people are taking on that task, and when you realize that you're putting more effort and time into figuring out that process or figuring out that system and answering questions or trying to support it the way that you've made it work for yourself, you definitely need to get to a point where you can scale at that point. And especially if, let's say you're a small business and you're talking to each other, you have those Post-it notes somebody has all around there could be. I'm using that as a visual example, but you have your Post-it notes. You all have a different, depending on what you have different contacts, right? So let's say there's 5 people in your business and, oh, do you have so-and-so's number? I didn't know, I don't have their information. So you need to send it to me. So you have to get out your phone. You have to send it. Well, if you have one, I'm full of all these different terms. One source of truth for that data, so it can speak to you properly from the one place, like one source of truth for that data is very important. So not having to waste that time to send somebody a contact or send somebody that information, or where's that shipment? When are we going to get that thing? What's up with that order we put in? There's
Right.
At a certain point, you're wasting more time asking those questions than getting a system that will work for you and help in those ways. So at that point, when that is your day-to-day is trying to figure those things out, you definitely need a scale and you need a system that will help you do that, I think.
Yeah,
No, that's
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. And I'll add to that and say that, when you're a certain size, you start off with a certain software or a certain piece of technology, right? But you should know that you may need to upgrade at some point in time. And so having that understanding and knowing at what point to do that, what is the next phase, that's another crucial key, I think, when it comes to how small businesses scale.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, especially, when I was in the IT world, in my MSP, customers they wouldn't think about their technology in that sense, in the fact that it has to continue to support you as you grow. And eventually you will reach a point where that piece of software may no longer be the right one. And now you have to go out there and search for what is the right one that can now support not just your current activities, but future-wise as well. As you continue to add, whether it's more people, whether it's different types of teams, whether it's other departments. And if you don't, like Leslie said, if you don't have that one area of source of truth, that's the one thing. Like, people, if your data is everywhere, then it's nowhere. So having it in a central location that is protected as well is crucial, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And something that most people don't realize is that the software also evolves as you're using it, right? It's not the same software you got on day one. Most of the time, for most good software out there, they continually add and refresh and add features and different functions, and you need to be able to stay up with that. So and that's also part of like knowing, is this software going to grow with me or not? There's a whole thing I could probably say about that. Making sure that it's a company, it's a software that also wants to grow. And so if they're growing too, they might be able to scale with you. If they're growing and they kind of go into a different direction and they realize their special client is a construction company and you're a barber, like that might not be 100% long-term, right? So,
And
but
that's a real
understanding
scenario,
that is
right?
very much a real scenario, right? Or is it too big? Is it so big that you're just not grasping it at all? So there is definitely a place where you can get to that. Yes, you can get to the point where you scale, but you need to know whether or not it's going to scale with you, how you're functioning day to day. And then if you're at that life cycle end of that software, that's okay. It's okay to change. It's okay to pivot, but doing it the right way for your own business is so important.
Yeah.
It's key.
A great example that I will say really quick before we have to sadly end.
We really could do this for a long time.
We could. Part 3, here we go. And in that, I totally forgot where I was going. But
I'm sure it was important, though.
it was.
Yeah, I'm
it
sure it
was.
was.
It was like that tip that we were going to end the show with, and it's gone now. But at the end of the day, it's okay. Okay, what it was is, if you are in talking about communication and software and being able to know when the right time is for either the next evolution of whether it is your software, whether it's processes that have to change, all of that.
Yeah.
The difference comes into play back in the day when it was just me and let's say 2 other people, it was okay for us to turn around in our chairs, communicate to one another, right? Because we were so close,
Yeah.
right? But now we're talking about a 20-person company. I can't just turn around and start talking to everybody because now everybody's in everybody's business and we get no work done. So
Yeah.
a system that needed to change was, us turning around and talking to each other to now, implementing a system like Teams or uh,
Slack
or
yeah.
one of those inter-communication tools. And so that's one way of realizing what worked back then may not work at this point, and you have to make those shifts and those pivots in order to continue to scale your business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great example. I love it.
So that was my tip.
That was
I
a
love
good tip.
it.
Hey,
That is.
All right.
thanks for drumming that up.
Yeah.
Boom. And there we are. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Yeah.
Keep track with us. Feel free to go visit our community, Civil Consulting Group community at civilconsultinggroup.com. And you'll find us there. You can chat with us. And if you have any questions or anything
We
along
look
those
forward
lines.
to seeing you.
That's right.
Yeah.
See ya.
All right, bye.